rock, dance, and hip hop, later known as new metal. But I had no peers in this scene in South Wales, so I bought a magazine every week called Kerrang! And my friends were in pictures. And at the back of Kerrang! They had a section which at first I laughed at and pulled out for a joke, but after time I realized I had enough friends, I really was quite lonely, and it was the pen pal section. Some other people after my own heart. For those who don't know what a pen pal is, it's someone you write to with like a pen and paper. You don't know them, but you put the letter in the post, and then you get to know them. It's crazy. So I saw these ads, and you slowly accept it, you get more familiar with it, and I started writing to these people. I was like, damn, you know what? I like those bands too. We could be friends. But I never got any responses. I was a bit disheartened, but I figured, they're getting a lot of people writing to them. Then I had the epiphany. The only way I was truly going to get someone to connect with me was if I posted my own ad. So I did. I had a limited number of characters at which to describe me, and to sell myself to other people to want to write to me.
Oh my God.
So I did. I mostly listed my favorite bands because I felt like that was my identity. Nothing else really mattered. Sure enough, a couple of weeks later in the magazine, it came out every Wednesday. I got it every Wednesday. There it was. My little ad, my parents' address, for it was the only address that I knew at the time. And the gateway to friendships. Now, nothing happened the first day. Second day, still nothing. I thought, what is this bullshit? But the third day, second class deliveries, a cheaper postal system, then the letters started to arrive. Yes. When I say letters, I mean plural. A couple on the first day, 3, 6 on the third day. It was out of control. I had too many friends. But of course, I haven't got time to write to all of these people. I know how it feels to be a beetle. So I had to select who would get my reply. And I did. I chose the one with more effort than any other. Sure, other people liked some of the similar bands that I liked, but there was one that stood out amongst them all. It was on purple paper. There were pictures in the columns. And there was talk of things like the occult and gothic culture, things that I didn't know. Most of my clothes were hand-me-downs from my older brothers. I didn't have an identity apart from the few bands that I listened to, but this exotic world of gothic nature seemed so appealing. Occult, witchcraft, why not? So I wrote back to Sophie. And it was a really nerve-wracking thing, right? This is the first connection. You write that letter, you have to try and steal a stamp from your mum's purse and then go sneak to a post box and send it off because it's too early to tell your parents. I did it, and I sent that letter, I replied, I tried to keep it cool, it's the first connection with someone. There's none of this kind of like profile thing. It's like literally these words are being judged on a character by character basis, and I sent that letter. And then for every minute of every day after that, I spent distracted beyond anything else and anxious. This person now I had finally connected with would judge me in the same way that my peers had and decide that they didn't really want to connect anymore. But 4 days later, the next letter arrived. And so started something. We wrote back and forth to each other again and again. It was crazy. It was like all of the minutiae about your life as a teenager, a young teenager, which is so boring, so uneventful, so meaningless, about people in school that she didn't know. I heard about people in school she didn't know, and witchcraft. And all of these things which we were sharing with each other that we would not share to anyone else. And naturally, there was going to be an escalation at some point. And that point was the phone call. We agreed that maybe it was time that we spoke. We'd never seen each other, we'd never heard each other's voices. We had confessed things to each other in writing that we had not confessed to anybody else. And so, it was time to speak on the phone. I told my parents it was time. They needed to know, especially as my dad would not let me use the phone unless I had told him. I promised not to make a phone call until after 6 p.m. when the phone calls were slightly cheaper. And he would like to remind me that they are charged by the minute, so if I have something to say, please say it very quickly. So we did it. We agreed on a time. I knew her number. I phoned her. Her mum answered, and I said, "Hello, is Sophie there?" That's what you do. Very cool, very chill. And then when we started speaking, it was so strange because even though we had confessed things to each other that we hadn't confessed to anybody else, things which we really just didn't want to admit, it's like we're complete strangers in this moment. This voice, this someone who's like, is this really Sophie? Is this really Stephen? And it was awkward for some time, but I think it was such a testament to what we'd been through and the shared experiences that we had that it didn't take long and suddenly we're just like talking like we're best friends who'd known each other for so long. I mean, admittedly, I had to pretend a lot more about witchcraft and the like. In real life, in writing, you have more time to go, oh, goodness. But it was so cool, and it became a weekly thing. We were like talking on the phone every week. We had a time, and we would be there. I'd tell my parents, go away, because the phone was in the hallway. Listen to me, because at one point, of course, we told each other that we loved each other.
Oh, wow.
Right? Seen each other. I've written and spoken on the phone, and now we're in love, right? It's so cool. And then came the big thing of like, hey, shall we meet?
Yes!
Bear in mind, I'm in South Wales and she's in Peterborough, which is like in the east of England, about 200 kilometers away, which might as well be the opposite side of the planet at that age. And my parents are not going to let a little 13-year-old go to Peterborough on their own. I'd already asked them to see the Smashing Pumpkins in Birmingham, and they beat up that. We got to see Eurovision in Cardiff. It was a compromise, but I wasn't very happy about it. But this was big. This was going to Peterborough. But the thing was, I wouldn't let it go. I wouldn't just say, okay, this is another one of those things which, yeah, I wanted, oh yeah, I want a dog. Well, will you look after it? No. I don't want a dog anymore. This was something I was pestering, and I really was showing her that I really wanted this. This was something serious. This potentially was my future. Oh. And eventually, and it seems crazy, if you met my mum, you would realize it's crazy. She's hard work. She said, yes, okay, fine. But on one condition. You have a certain train you go out on. You come back one day later, and you come back on a certain train, and I will talk to the train guard at the platform, tell him what you're doing, so he can keep an eye out for you on the train. He will not be the same train guard that when it goes around London, so you will have to be extra careful there because London is a dangerous city and you'll be kidnapped. So I know, it's pretty stressful. And then eventually I got there, to the dizzy heights of Peterborough. Those who haven't heard of it, it's for good reason. It's an uneventful town in the UK. And when I got out of the train, nervous as absolute hell, probably sweating, I sweat a lot. I saw Sophie and her mum on the platform. And suddenly it escalated to a whole new level, right? Because it's one thing to write letters to someone. There's another thing to talk to someone on the phone. But then, to actually talk to someone face to face. Damn, your communication isn't even through words, it's through the pure bullshit that comes out of your pores, your mannerisms, pauses in sentence, the things that you emphasize. It's out of your control. And so we were there, and it was just as awkward as it was on the phone. Of course, I mean, God, we were both nervous as hell, and her mum's there. What am I going to do? Hey, but this time was a little different. The awkwardness stayed. Not on my behalf. I was besotted. I thought she was beautiful. I knew everything about her. I guess she had been so honest in her communication. She's confessing things which are so real, so everything, whereas I just wanted a friend. And so we kind of went back to hers, had some, fried food, what people eat in England. And then we went for a little walk. It wasn't raining, which was lovely. We had a little conversation. I thought things were going okay. But as the conversation went on, I kind of realized this is getting harder, you know? It's not flowing as well as it did before. And then we got back to her place, and I was like, oh dear, I'm in Peterborough. So we turned on the TV, and there was Ricky Lake on. Turns out she's seen every episode of Ricky Lake. I didn't know that was possible. So she was describing the episode of Ricky Lake. It was one of those satellite TV channels. It was back-to-back Ricky Lake. I watched more Ricky Lake that evening than I have in my life. And we just kept watching, and she would comment on Ricky Lake. I would do the whole kind of, what more of a reaction can you have? Until the point at which she went to bed. Then Mum made the little sofa bed. I went to sleep. The next morning, she'd gone out. And Mum woke me up and said, Sophie's gone out. Yeah, I can't remember the exact words, but I could just imagine the awkwardness from her situation. Strange teenager in this room, a daughter who's disappeared. And what do I do with him now? Especially as his train is not for another 4 hours. I'm like, you know what, bless her, she did everything she could. She was like, okay, let's go out to get some food. And honestly, I connected better with him, Mum. And it was such a nice realization as well, because it was like, oh, it's not me, it's us. You know? It's just that we didn't click. So I got back to the train, and Mum was like, you know, here's some sandwiches. Don't go hungry. Don't tell your Mum I sent you back hungry. And I went back home, and we never spoke again. Never. Yeah, right? Pretty raw.
Did you talk to Mom?
I talked to Mum. Not one of those stories. But it was a real, like, I don't know. I mean, it was a beautiful experience in so many ways, and I look back at it now so positively, because even though obviously you would never choose that path for yourself or anyone that you know, like, it was formative, and it made me connected with someone in a way that I hadn't been before, and it also made me realize things about myself that I liked or didn't like. And even though nothing was meant to be with Sophie and I would do it again in a heartbeat if I could relive the experience.